Bags down, spikes on. Welcome to the track. Hi, my name is Colin Weitzman. I'm going to be your host for this episode of Track World News. And before we get into everything, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe, follow the channel. It really helps us know that you're enjoying the content. And we have some pretty interesting things coming up down the pipeline that we would really, think that you will enjoy. So for this episode, have a few topics that we want to go over. First, want to go over a recap of some of my favorite performances that I saw this week, both on the collegiate level as well as from some professionals. So I want to start off with a performance that is extraordinarily impressive, but I would think everyone that is a fan of track and field would say, yeah, I'm not too surprised. And that's Athing Mu from Texas A&M. So Athing ran a 157.73, which is the national record in the 800 meters and is also the world lead. Not only is it a national record, but she destroyed what the former national record was of 158.22. And if you watch the race, what's even more impressive is that it looks like she even negative split. She ran almost a faster second 400 than she did her first one because she was kind of staying with the pack. And I believe Aaliyah Miller, who's from Baylor, was also in that race, who ran a PR of around 2 minutes. But that just got kind of lost in the shuffle when you have someone break the national record. And she's just really putting on her performance on why she should be the Bowerman favorite. I mean, she's really dominating everything right now. The fact that she did the 400 indoors instead of the 800, I think mainly to capitalize on points and kind of work better with her schedule. Doesn't take away from the fact that if she had done the 800 indoors, I think she would have been the national champion. And I bet you during the outdoor national championship, she'll be doing the 800 so she can get all of the medals and accolades that she deserves. But she is having a fantastic career and only a freshman. And if I'm looking at it, so I would say that there are two athletes right now that are really, really special. And those two are Athing Mu and Cole Hocker. Those two athletes are having very extraordinarily great seasons this year. And if I were to make a bet on two athletes that would go professional after this year, before they graduate, well, I would have had originally three, which would have been Athing Mu, Cole Hocker, and then also Casey Lightfoot, but he's already went professional. He jumped that gun early. I wouldn't be surprised if she decides to go pro after this, because this is an extraordinarily good performance. I mean, she's putting up times that not only are they good enough to possibly make the Olympic team, she has a good chance of being in that final and potentially medaling with that and how she's trending this year. She's just having a fantastic year, and to be a freshman is fantastic. I mean, I would say two of the best women right now in the sport. Another woman that I think could be going on to the professionals after this would be Tara Davis out of Texas. She's also having a fantastic career, not only in the hurdles, not only in the long jump, but also in the hurdles, because obviously national record holder in the long jump. But she had a fantastic performance, Athing, and excited to see where she's going to continue to do throughout this year. Next one, Jasmine Camacho Quinn. So she was a former hurdler from Kentucky. Her and Sydney McLaughlin competed for a year when Sydney was there as a freshman. She ran a new PR of 12:32, which puts her at 7th all time in the 100 meter hurdles. Really fast, especially in April, to be able to set a pretty big PR like that. I mean, it now puts her in the conversation of, is she now the favorite going into the 100 meter hurdles for the Olympics? I think it puts her in that conversation. She still has to, I think, show that she can not only run this time once, but do it multiple times. So I don't know when she's going to be racing again. Hopefully it's going to be sometime soon. I bet you she probably does 2 or 3 more races before the Olympic trials. I'd like to see what she runs there. If she can run somewhere around this 12:32 mark, it doesn't have to be exactly what that is, but if it's somewhere between 12:4 or 12, like low 12:5s to, this 12:32, I think she's got to be in a really good position to, hopefully take an Olympic, title there. I mean, she's running great. So fantastic race from her. She did really well. Two other performances. These all come from the same meet, and not the eighth mo, but these next ones. Justin Gatlin, just super consistent in the 100, and the fact that he's 39 and still running 9.98s. He's going to be 40 soon, and he's going to be still running sub 10s. Just incredible. I mean, he took down a star-studded cast in the 100 meters with Lyles. I believe Andre de Grasse was also there. A couple other really big names were running in there. That was the Tom Jones invite down in Florida. Just very impressive to see that he's remaining this consistent. Sure, he's not dropping. He's not dropping any 9.8s. He's not dropping any 9.7s. But to stay in that 9.98, I think he ran that 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Very impressive. So great for him. One thing that was funny though is while he ran a 9.98, that wasn't the fastest 100 in the meet, even though it was in the professional heat. The fastest time actually came from a sophomore from FSU, Javon Martin. So he actually ran a 9.94, which is the nation leading time. He went ahead of Terrence Laird, I believe, who was running, I think it was a 10.04 from last week. Might have mixed up the time a little bit, but he's now the nation leader, and that's a fast time. I mean, it's very impressive. He kind of came out of nowhere a little bit with it. I believe his fastest wind legal time before that was a 10.4. So to go from 10.4 to a 9.94 is unheard of. Now, obviously, there's a lot of time in between that. He did have a time that was a 10.14, but it was not wind legal, so didn't count. But this is still a huge jump from him. This is some guy where would I put him as my favorite for the national title in the 100? No, I wouldn't, because it's just the first time he's done it, and I'm not saying anyone can run 9.94. That's not the case. There's a very few amount of people that could do that, but I would like to see that if you can do it more than just once. So far, I mean, yeah, we had Terrence Laird who's dropping crazy times. He could be under sub 10. Matthew Bowling hasn't done too great. I mean, he's ran, I think, 10.21, which is fast, but it's not national champion fast. We'll have to see what he does, because he's someone else that's really, people are looking forward to. The 60-meter champion indoors, Michael Williams, we'll have to see what he's going to start doing as we get closer to June. So fantastic time to see from him. Once again, we're going to have to see how consistent he is. See what he's going to be running next week, the weeks after. If this is a pace that he can maintain, or is it something that, hey, it's kind of, he got lightning in a bottle and just really had the race of his life here. Fantastic to see, and only being a sophomore just shows where the sport is and where we can go from here. So fantastic race from him. Love to see, what he does going forward. And as I mentioned, many of these performances and a lot of great performances this week actually all came from the Tom Jones invite. There was also a very impressive 200, which had Fred Curley, Trayvon Bromell. Those are probably the two biggest names that were in there. Fred Curley ended up winning it. So we had a lot of really interesting and impressive performances coming out of this Tom Jones invite. And if we go back to what my episode was, what was it? Probably 2-3 weeks ago, I had mentioned that I think we should have like a track circuit where, just like in golf or just like in tennis, where there are like 4 or 5 major championships, I think we should do that in track and field, where it's like Penn Relays, the Tom Jones invite, the Prefontaine Classic, things like that, where we have these major events that all of our professional athletes, the biggest names in our sport, are going to be competing in, because we don't have that in our sport. And I'm going to be getting into that very shortly, so I don't want to go too in depth. But this was a very exciting meet. We had back-to-back meets of really good sprinting. Was it the Miramar last week? That was also in Florida. So fantastic so far. Having some pretty good competition. So that was something that was pretty exciting, and some of the performances that stuck out for me. Obviously, we also had a couple other ones like Kipchoge ran a 2:04 in the marathon, which was actually performed at an airport, which was interesting enough that they had an airport to do a marathon, and he just dominated. Once again, I think he's probably going to win the Olympic title this year. He only has one, which is interesting enough, but what's he going to do from there? Because he's been in this for a while. He's pretty much done everything you can do in marathon running. I mean, where does he go from here? Who knows? I mean, unless he's going to try to break 2 again. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what he decides to do. But those are some performances that really stuck out to me so far this year. And then earlier on this week, to kind of switch the topic, coming out of staying with the sprinting realm, Christian Coleman, he had his ban of 2 years reduced down to just 18 months. So what does this mean for Christian Coleman? Well, it means that he will still obviously be missing the Olympics, but he will not be missing the World Championships in 2022. He'll be able to compete in that. He'll have a short runway of meets being able to compete in going into it. I think he has about 3 weeks until he has to, in between when his ban is lifted and when he can compete. So he'll have that short window to go at it. And I'm sure Christian Coleman, he really likes the fact that his ban is reduced and he's not going to be missing, a ton of meets. But it really hurts because this is the biggest name, or was especially one of the biggest names in track and field, especially in sprinting. And he is missing the biggest Olympics in modern sprint history. This is the first time that somebody not named Usain Bolt is going to be the Olympic champion. And Christian Coleman was in prime position to be that guy. He had the best opportunity to be the #1 sprinter in the world. And the fact that he missed his drug test or was not told where he was supposed to be or didn't tell his people where he was supposed to be is the reason that he's not going to have that recognition of being the first guy post Bolt to win an Olympic title in the 100 or the 200. So what's this going to mean for his legacy? I mean, I don't know. I think it depends on what he does after this, because the next time he's going to have an Olympic chance is 2024. So he's got another 3 years until he has another shot at this thing. Hopefully he stays healthy, he develops, and he doesn't have any more of these issues. Because if he has another issue like this, that might be the 4th strike and he's out, and he's going to be, gone for that Olympics as well. So I'm hoping he doesn't have any more of these issues. I'm praying that he learns his lesson and makes sure that he lets people know where he is at all times. Luckily, this wasn't like where he actually missed a test or he tested positive for something. It was just that his whereabouts weren't known. And so I'm hoping that this doesn't happen again, because this is another guy that was pretty much guaranteed to make the Olympic team. So this is another spot that's open for this year. But I'm sure this hurts him a lot, where he's like, dang, this really could have been my year, but I messed up, and now you got to pay the consequences of it. Stinks, but that's the reality of the situation. So I mean, good enough for him. He'll be able to compete at the Worlds next year, but he's not going to be able to compete at the Olympics. He put out a post on his Instagram, which saying, hey, thanks for, he thanked the, what I think was like the anti-doping committee for recognizing and reducing his ban, but he was still saying, he still wanted to be able to compete, and who wouldn't, to be honest. So that was that with Coleman. We'll see if anything changes in the future, but I mean, his appeal went through, it's done, so there's probably not going to be any new news for Coleman for the next year or so. Next, want to get into a topic that I've been thinking about for a little while, and that's some things that I see that are holding professional track and field back. So when when people ask me like, what is your favorite sport? What is your favorite thing to watch and all that? Like I say track and field, and really in specific, I'm talking about collegiate track and field, because I think collegiate track and field is just done so much better. There's more team aspects of it. You know the schedule a little bit better. You know who's going to be competing where. You get the heat sheets. It's exciting, and the national championship for track is the best team event in track and field that we have. Like, there is no other team event in all of track and field other than the national championship in college. And so that's why, like, it's my favorite, and that's why I'm hoping to be able to go someday and watch it, because it's so exciting to see, because it's the only team event that we have in our sport. But not only that, there are some other issues that I think, especially on the pro circuit. And so with this, I'm going to list the 4 major issues that I see, which is holding professional track and field back. So when I say professional track and field, like I mentioned, I'm not mentioning anything about college. This is not pertaining to high school, middle school, none of that. It's all for post-collegiate track and field. Now, some of these issues and things that I say are holding professional track and field back can also be attributed to the collegiate level, but mainly I am just talking about professionals. And you'll kind of see, and I'll probably mention it a few times, then like, oh yeah, and this is an issue with college track too. But mainly what I'm talking about, this is all about the professional level. Okay, so let's get into it. And these 4 are in no particular order. They're just the 4 things that I see that are issues. Number 1, the big names don't compete against each other enough. So this weekend was a great weekend of the opposite of that, where we had a lot of the biggest names competing against each other. We had Gatlin, we had Holloway drop some great times, especially with that Adidas 4x4, which was exciting, which I'll get into in a moment. And we had we had Andre DeGrasse, we had Trayvon Bromell, Fred Curley, all that. We had huge names competing in it, and it was an exciting meet to watch. And it's something that we don't get very often. Like, many times you have athletes competing anywhere, and so you do not get to see like the best names going up against each other, except when they're at the big time championships. Like, that's the only times that you really see these major names competing against each other. Not because they're running from each other and they don't want to see, these other competitions because, oh no, I might lose. Like, that's not the case. It's just that it's so difficult for schedules to be combined, and there is no set, there's no set thing. So we don't get to see these big names competing against each other very often. And that takes me into my second one, which is that there's no set schedule. Like, there is no professional circuit where you know exactly where these athletes are going to be. Many of these athletes don't even announce where they're competing. Like, you will have no idea where ABC athlete will be throughout the year. You find out 2 days in advance, like, oh, cool, Fred Curley's competing here. Oh, cool. Not Athing Mu, she's still in college, but oh, cool. Like, Sydney McLaughlin's competing here. Like, they don't tell you where they're going to be a year in advance, like literally every other sport. And there's no major championships other than the Olympics and world championships and national championships where they're going to be. So you don't know, okay, how can I follow my favorite athletes? I don't know where they're going to be competing each week. So it just makes it so difficult to watch because you don't know where they're competing. And so that's something that's just super difficult. And that takes me into my third one, which is that it's really difficult to access meets. I mean, many of these meets that are being, streamed or either A, not being streamed, and so you can't actually see them. B, they might be happening at obscure times, or depending on where you are in the world, might be difficult to watch. Like, if there is a meet that's being competed over in Europe, if you live in the West Coast of the United States, somewhere in California, there's no shot that you're going to be able to watch that meet, because that meet's going to be going on at like 1 a.m. for you. And that just makes it super difficult. I mean, that's just time zones. Every sport that's international is going to have that issue, whether it's tennis or track and field, whatever it might be. But it just makes it more difficult to watch your fans or to watch your favorite athletes compete. Also, like many of these meets are not being competed on major channels. Like we had the American Track League, which is a great example of what happens when you do throw track and field on major channels. It was on ESPN. That went really well. They got a lot of viewership. If you want to hear more about that, listen to our previous interview with Paul Doyle. He actually talks about that and the viewership that they have. But for the most part, they're locked on streams that are hidden behind a paywall, and you're not able to watch them if you're the average fan. And some fans, like, you do pay for it, and you can pay for these streams, and they're pretty good, but you're not going to be able to see all of your favorite athletes all the time because it's only the cameras that they're choosing you to see, whether it's just the track or certain events. So it just makes it more difficult. Like it's like that doesn't happen in other sports. If you want to watch your favorite your favorite basketball player, golfer, UFC, whatever it is, you can see them compete. You don't have to go through all these hoops and whatever to see it, which is frustrating. Fourth one, and this kind of goes into the scheduling for me, and it's that only 2 meets really matter to many of these athletes, and that's either the Olympics or the World Championships, depending on what year it is. It's something that's so annoying and just dumb to me, like, because you hear, and it's just the way our sport is built right now, that, oh yeah, it's an Olympic year, so the only thing that matters is the Olympics. I think Clayton Murphy even wrote a tweet saying the only thing that matters this year is how you do at the trials. That's it. And it's like, that's stupid. It's like, so you're telling, it's like there's only one thing in our sport that matters, and it just happens one time every 4 years. Well, then maybe there should be, something more that's important in our sport. If you're telling me that there's only one thing that matters, and it's the Olympic Championships or the World Championships, if it's a World's year, like, then there's an issue. Like, imagine if they only had the Super Bowl once every 4 years. That would just be dumb. It would be idiot. Like, it makes every other meet throughout the entire year just worth nothing. It's like, okay, let me qualify for the trials. Let me hit the Olympic standard. And then once I've done that, then, I'm going to make sure that I'm all tuned up for the Olympics, and I'm not going to worry about anything else. Like, I'm not going to try to be putting on this, these great performances during the other meets. I'm just going to kind of, go in and do it. Like, that's something that's super annoying, because we hear pretty often in our sport, like, oh yeah, I just wanted to take this race easy. I didn't want to put too much effort into it or whatever. Like, you don't hear that in literally any other sport. What do you think would happen if, like, it's like in the middle of a regular season game, you hear Tom Brady, he's just like, yeah, you know what, like, I'm not making all my reads. I'm just kind of, taking it as it is. And we're just going through the motions right now, getting ready for the playoffs. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, you perform to the top of your ability every single time. But in track and field, since the only thing that matters is the Olympics or the World Championships, there, you can get away with, oh yeah, no, this race, I'm just, kind of cruising, want to, go through the motions and test things out. You should be testing things out in practice. You shouldn't be testing things out in competitions against world-class athletes. And that's just something that frustrates me as a fan, where it's like, if you want to be, and many of these athletes, all of these athletes want to be paid more and grow their brand and be bigger and better, like, because everyone would. You're a professional, that's what you want to do. Like, make it so that these sports and these events are worth watching. Like, be running as fast as you can every single time, trying to break records every single time. Something that's exciting. Well, we have Grant Holloway. Now the world lead, ran a 13.07 in the 110 hurdles, undefeated in his entire career. He puts on a show. He's a great personality and someone that is super exciting to watch. He proposed something that was pretty cool and an idea that I would love to see, which was this was at the Tom Jones Invite. They had a 4x4, and so it was the Adidas 4x4. It was like him, Arion, the guy that is the high schooler that turned professional, and 2 other guys. I can't remember their names right now. Elijah Hall, the guy from Houston, I believe, and then someone else. I'm drawing a blank. But so those 4, they ran a 4x4, and then he was like, "Yo, like, let's get a Nike versus Adidas 4x4." I'm like, yeah, like, let's do it. That's something that would be awesome and really cool for the fans to watch. Like, let's get a Nikes versus Adidas, maybe even versus Puma, 4x4 and 4x1 for the men and the women. That would be a really awesome showcase to do. You could have, hey, we're going to have the men and women's, 110s and 100s, whatever. And then we're going to also have the long jump, whatever, 4x4, 4x1. You could have a little circuit of like the battle of the brands, like Nike versus Adidas versus Puma, whatever it might be. And I think that's something that would be really exciting because those are all the biggest names in the sport, and they're taking their biggest athletes for their brands, competing against each other and seeing who's the best. I mean, that would be something that I'd be excited to watch. Like I'd definitely pay for that, to see the best athletes that are representing each brand going against each other, because we don't get it very often. That goes back to my first point here, which was big names don't compete against each other enough. Like we want to see better competitions with better athletes more often. That's what we got to see. But for some reason, I feel like it's never going to happen because that's just the way our sport is set up, and it's super annoying. So to go back on it, the 4 things that I think are holding professional track and field back: the big names do not compete against each other often enough. There is no set schedule. It is extremely difficult to access meets. And then the 4th one, only 2 meets actually matter to these athletes, and that is the Olympics and the World Championships. So those are some things that I think are holding our sport back. Hopefully they can change, but we'll see. I mean, what things did I miss? First, what would you say is holding professional track and field back? What are your thoughts on Christian Coleman's ban being reduced, and what were some performances that were exciting for you this past week? Love to hear. But thank you for listening to another episode of Track World News. Before we leave, make sure that you subscribe, like, follow the show. It really helps us know that you're enjoying everything and you're liking the content. My name's Colin Waitsman. Have a good one, and peace.